Imagine taking sounds, like really familiar melodies and then just twisting them, making them sound brand new, exciting, unexpected, all just by changing what's going on around them, the musical setting. It's kind of like magic, the power of arrangement and musical thinking.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into sources you send us, find those surprising connections, that hidden knowledge. And today we're exploring let's say, the very intricate world of playing chromatically on the diatonic harmonica. We'll be looking through the lens of one specific, pretty fascinating piece of music.
Yeah, we're diving into a YouTube discussion from the O Harmonica channel. It's all about an artist's personal journey into chromaticism and, how that whole process shaped their album, Bom Retiro, and especially this one track, Girassol. What's really cool is how it connects the super technical side, the mechanics of playing, with just pure musical expression. Right. So our mission today is to unpack how these really complex harmonic ideas can actually create music that's accessible, but also really innovative. It kind of shows that sometimes the most sophisticated stuff is hiding right there in plain sight. Okay, let's get into it. So let's start with the main challenge, right? You've got the diatonic harmonica. People usually think, okay, blues, folk, specific keys, pushing that into playing all the notes chromatically. How do you even do that without it sounding, I don't know, messy or forced? The artist mentions this brings up a whole lot of important questions. It's clearly not straightforward.
That's exactly it. It's the core problem. How do you go beyond just, learning the fingerings or the techniques, the bends, the overblows, to get something that sounds genuinely musical? And the artist makes a great point. The audience, they just want to hear music. They don't really care how you made the sound, They don't care about the instrument's quirks or how hard it was. Does it sound good? Does it feel right? That's what matters.
Yeah, I see that. So for the player who's wrestling with these perceived limitations, what's the goal then? It sounds like they need to figure out how to, as the artist puts it, kind of disguise all these problems the instrument has so the tricky bits don't stick out like a sore thumb.
Exactly. And instead, use those challenges, embrace them almost, with a very true and coherent musical sense. So the instrument itself, its difficulties, become part of the harmonic story in this really interesting way.
Okay, so the album Bom Retiro, that's central here. It's a collection of older songs, but what's really telling is why he revisited them. It wasn't just nostalgia, it was like a deliberate test lab, a turning point where he used his own past music to tackle these technical hurdles. He realized he had to play the hard keys just as well as the easy ones.
Right. And it wasn't just showing off, look what I can do. It was a strategy for growth, for artistic development. He intentionally picked or wrote pieces in these, more complicated keys. F sharp major, B major, E major. It was like setting up a musical obstacle course for himself to force development and update performance in all keys. A real commitment.
And what I find really fascinating about Bom Retiro is how the artist deliberately used the harmonica's supposed weaknesses. He calls the album full of detail, a mess of holes, even music that has everything to go wrong on the harmonica. That's pretty bold, isn't it?
It is. It's almost backwards thinking, including undesirable chords on purpose.
But it was a method, yeah. A way to strengthen his playing everywhere, especially in those difficult tonal areas, like embracing the potential for error to find mastery.
And it wasn't just him alone in a room. No, exactly. He mentions the Furmerka event, and that tells us something important. Big musical shifts, they rarely happen in isolation. It often takes a community, a movement like Furmerka, that actually valued this chromatic approach on the diatonic harmonica. It shows there was this growing group embracing the challenge, pushing the whole art form forward together.
Okay, so with Bom Retiro setting the stage for this chromatic journey, let's zoom in on one track, Girassol. This one really seems to capture the whole idea. It's described as having a reasonably extensive form, starts like a ballad, but here's the thing. Good luck trying to pin down the key. It just keeps shifting, keeps you guessing.
That's the atonality kicking in. And atonality, it sounds maybe complicated or chaotic, but here it just means it's deliberately avoiding settling into one main home key. So the music's constantly moving, shifting. It creates this really vibrant, unpredictable sound world. It frees the harmonica from its usual tethers, opens up all these expressive possibilities. Girassol starts right off with an E Lydian chord that's like an E major, but with this bright raised fourth note, an A shag. It signals right away, okay, we're going on an adventure.
And it doesn't waste time. It throws these complex progressions at you straight away, like E Lydian, then bam, C minor 69, then an altered C sharp, then B minor, a major augmented fifth, F7 Chak 11, G minor, Ab major. it just keeps going.
Yeah, it's not just random chords, though. It creates this feeling of constant movement, like you're walking through this beautiful, ever-changing harmonic garden. It definitely challenges your ear, but in a really good way. It really is, like the artist said, an ode to chromaticism on the diatonic harmonica.
And what about this idea of minimalism within all that complexity? That sounds interesting. The artist says he can hold just one note, like an F, and make it sound totally different just by changing the chords underneath. The note stays the same, but how you hear it changes completely.
Right. So the question is, how does one note get four different garments, as he puts it? It's all about context. You put that F note and outside an A major chord, suddenly it's the 13th. Sounds kind of rich. Put it in G diminished, now it's the 7th, maybe more dissonant. In Eve 7 tag 11, it's a bright 13th again. G minor, it's the 7th. Ab major, it becomes the major 7th. It's all about how the curtain behind us, the harmony, transforms the feeling, the color of that single sustained note.
But here's the twist. Despite all this harmonic, sophistication, the actual melody of Girassol is apparently quite accessible. He says it's not a mega complicated song, meaning many of you listening could probably figure out the tune with a bit of practice.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. It shows that really innovative music doesn't have to be unapproachable. It can still be beautiful and memorable.
And the title, Girassol, Sunflower. There's more to it.
There's a clever double meaning. Yes, face to the sun, the literal flower. But it's also a play on the word giro, which means turn. It refers to those quick exchanges between musicians when they're improvising, like passing a musical idea back and forth really fast, like a hot potato. It demands everyone be totally on their game, thinking fast.
Okay, now this surprised me. Girassol is apparently entirely inspired by blues phrases, but they're hidden.
Yeah, well camouflaged, as he says. You might listen and not even pick up on the blues connection, which is pretty ingenious.
How does that work?
Well, he gives examples, like taking a standard C minor pentatonic lick, a bluesy sound, and maybe shifting it up a semitone. But while that little melodic fragment moves, the harmony underneath takes a huge leap somewhere else entirely. So these blues phrases, they kind of migrate, as he puts it, into this different world of universal music or Brazilian instrumental stuff. It really shows how versatile the harmonica can be when you think outside its usual boxes.
Wow. And then there's the interlude section, using just one note.
Yeah, just the note C. But the harmony underneath is constantly shifting, changing.
So it's like one point of focus melodically, but the background keeps repainting itself, making that C feel new each time.
Exactly. It's a brilliant way to show how a single note can be chromatic in its effect, because that C fits into all these different chords where it does a different job. Sometimes it's the 6th, then the 5th, the 4th, 3rd, 9th, major 7th, even hashtag 11. And he explains that this C note is actually harmonized across two whole harmonic areas, Eb major and a D major. So it's demonstrating chromaticism through the harmony, moving through all 12 tones via the chords, not just by playing a scale up and down. It's the context that makes it chromatic.
Okay, so the main melody itself, it sounds familiar, right? Like maybe a standard descending G minor pentatonic thing on a C harmonica, something you might have played or heard before, but the harmony flips it.
Totally flips it. It's amazing how he recontextualizes these familiar sounds. That G note, which might feel like your root, your home base. Nope. Here, it's actually the 3rd of an Eb major chord, gives it a totally different flavor. And the F note you hear, that becomes the 9th, add a little spice. So this subtle shift in what the note is functionally within the chord makes the phrase sound completely different, even though you're playing it using standard techniques.
And then when it lands on C,
it becomes the major 7th of a DB major chord. So you get these two major 7ths in a row with different tones. It creates this really unique kind of sensory movement, shifts your ear in a lovely way.
So this modern sound they talk about, it's not just about flashy techniques like overblows.
Not primarily, no. It's deeply rooted in the harmony.
Which suggests the harmonica isn't just playing melodies over the chords here. It's part of the chords, building the harmony with the rest of the band.
Yes, it's integral to that whole harmonic fabric. He even throws in these movements that feel a bit like classic bossa nova, but they're incredibly fast, really dynamic. And get this, the bass lines often contain all 12 notes of the chromatic scale, C, C sharp, D, even so on. He's intentionally weaving this super rich, multi-tonal foundation to support all that harmonic movement. It keeps the ground shifting under your feet, sonically speaking.
All right, the improvisation bridge. This sounds like where things get really tough. The artist basically says it's just full of annoying chords to improvise on.
Uh-huh. Yeah, not exactly inviting.
He says the start of your phrase, how you enter, is absolutely critical. Like stepping onto a moving train, you've got to time it right.
And this section has a really tricky modulation, a two-tone modulation, jumping from Ebb major all the way to B major. And he warns, if you find Ebb major hard on a C harmonica, well, B major is going to be even tougher. Those key notes like D sharp, F sharp, A sharp, they're notoriously difficult to get perfectly in tune on a standard diatonic. It's a real test of control.
So, if the music is atonal or shifting keys constantly, how do you improvise? Is it just chaos?
Not chaos, no. Actually, the artist explains that the atonality gives you more options, many readings of chords. So you could choose to hear that ebb chord as Lydian, for instance, which opens up different melodic ideas. This ability to kind of displace the tonal center in your own mind for your phrasing is crucial. It lets you find creative lines that work, that don't clash horribly with what the bass or piano is doing. Gives you a lot of freedom within that complex structure.
He even points out some unusual progressions, right?
Yeah, like a minor 2-5 that resolves to a major chord, stuff composers can play with. And he even corrects a note in the sheet music. A sol bemol, a G-flat was missing. A tiny detail, but vital for understanding the harmony correctly.
Okay, so it sounds incredibly challenging, but also rewarding. He calls it a beautiful study.
Definitely. Dynamic, demanding. It really pushes improvisers to expand their thinking, their vocabulary.
And there's a final bridge, too, with another modulation.
Yeah, this one's got a 1.5 tone jump, moving from a suspended chord to a minor chord. And based on the melody, he explains why thinking of that suspended chord as Mixolydian makes the most sense harmonically.
But he thinks about it differently himself.
Kind of. In his head, he hears that 1.5 tone jump more like a two-tone modulation. He connects reluted modes like thinking Ab minor Dorian for the suspended G, and then E minor as a mental shortcut maybe. But these big jumps, these very strong modulations, they're key learning moments for anyone diving into chromatic playing on the diatomic.
So, wrapping up the goal with Bom Retiro, it was accessible melodies, but really tough improv sections.
Pretty much. So you can learn the tunes, enjoy them, sing along even. But when it comes time to improvise, to create your own lines over those chords, that's where the challenge lies. It constantly pushes your boundaries.
And he's not stopping there. More difficult stuff is coming.
Apparently so. His next projects, Chantivale and Lago das Fadas, are hinted to be even tougher. He calls Bom Retiro itself functional harmony rafting, which sounds both exciting and maybe a little terrifying.
Huh. It really drives home the point that chromaticism isn't just a technique you add on. It's in the instrument. It's in the musical conception.
Exactly. The songs were written specifically to force his own development in all these different keys. And the best way to learn this stuff, not just scales, not just theory in a book, it's by playing the music, getting inside it, wrestling with it.
Wow. What a fascinating dive that was. We've really seen how one artist took the harmonica, with all its supposed limits, and turned it into this vehicle for incredible chromatic expression. Blending melodies you can grab onto with harmony that's just, wow, really sophisticated.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How can you take these ideas into your own music making, whatever that might be? Remembering that the magic isn't always just in the notes themselves, but how the harmony around them, that context, changes their whole garment, changes the feeling for the listener.
So what's the takeaway for you listening? Maybe it's that real innovation doesn't always mean throwing everything out. Sometimes it's about taking something familiar, like those blues licks, and cleverly disguising them, putting them in a totally new context. Think about a simple tune you know really well. How could you make it wear 4 different garments just by changing the chords underneath? What would happen? And hey, if you want to try Girassol yourself, the artist mentioned the sheet music is available free on their website, so you can check that out. Until next time, keep exploring, keep listening closely, and keep looking for those surprising connections hidden in the music all around us.